All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thanks so much for being here. We're really excited to bring you today some tips and tricks on how to build the ultimate home golf simulator. So this webinar has actually been in the works for several months now, so we're really excited to bring it to you all today. So my name's Dan, and I take care of B2B marketing activities here at BenQ Australia. I'm also joined here with Bejoy. He's the BenQ Projector product manager for our business here in Sydney. And also we have a very special guest on the line today who we'll get to in just a little minute. Sorry, before we go on, I'll just go through a bit of housekeeping for today. So first of all, we'll be having a presentation from our special guest on the tips and tricks for building the ultimate home golf simulator at home, or the ultimate golf simulator at home. Our special guest is Jim Rhodes from GolfSim Australia. A little bit more about him on the next slide. We'll have the simulation projector lineup shared by Bejoy after that. We'll have a short Q&A at the end. And if you'd like to just throw your questions down in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, we'll get to them at the end. Just a note to let you know that this session is being recorded and it will be put up for public viewing on the BenQ Australia YouTube channel. So check back in the next few days for that to be uploaded over there. So first of all, I just want to tell you a little bit about Jim. So Jim is a golfing professional. He's been involved in all things golf, honing his craft from a very young age. He's also worked in the AV and golf simulator industry for the past 3 years with GolfSim Australia, based in Victoria. But most importantly, he's really passionate about creating, designing, and installing the highest quality golf simulation setups for residential homes and beyond as well. So having said that, thanks so much, Jim, for being here. Over to you. Shall I ask you what your handicap is now, or is that for the Q&A at the end?
Maybe we'll save that for the Q&A at the end, I think.
Okay.
All right, I'll bring my shared screen up for you now, Dan. Beauty. All right. Has that one come up?
Yep, all good. Thanks, Jim.
Fantastic. All right. Great. So thanks, Dan, for the introduction. Yeah, obviously really excited to be a part of the webinar today. It's great to be here in partnership with BenQ. So I guess a little bit of background on myself. Yes, I'm a lifelong avid golfer, working with GolfSim Australia, who really are Australia's #1 golf simulator installer for the last 3 years. So we specialise in complete custom golf simulator designs for our clients across residential homes, indoor centres, golf clubs, and everything and anything in between. I'm here today partnering with BenQ to provide a summary on some handy tips and tricks for those of you at home who are planning your own golf simulator designs and installation to help you point in the right direction along the way. So I'll jump right in and I'll cover a few of the points that I think are the main items for you to be paying attention to for your golf sim design. So the first big point would be room dimensions and layout. Now, this is a big one. So it's the first and the biggest design aspect that you will have to cover when it comes to your installation plans. Your room dimensions essentially will completely dictate things like which launch monitors are even suitable for you to use within your space. Not all technology is perfectly suitable in all size rooms, so it's a big one to cover off first. How far away the golfer can be hitting from the impact screen. That's a big one. That has a fairly big play on the overall playing experience. How much room is left at the rear of the room? Now, this is a big one, especially for those of you who are looking to do a dual home theatre golf simulator combined space. It's really important to make sure that we're considering how much room do we need for the golfing aspect and how much room do we need for the home theatre aspect, whether there's chairs, bar stools or a beer fridge, which we find really common towards the back of the room as well. Also, namely, exactly where the projector can be located. So one of the discussions I find I end up having most days with our clients is, what kind of projector will be suitable and where does it need to be located? And that can be entirely dictated by the depth of the room, the width and the height of the screen. So it's really important to consider your room dimensions when you first start to do your investigation into which projector is suitable. And also dictating if we can fit in left-hand and right-handed golfers. So there are some minimum width requirements that we need to be able to fit in lefties and righties. So it's a really important thing to consider early on during this process, because all too many golfers give me a call and they've locked in their designs for their simulator, half finished the installation, and it's only when they get the sim up and running they realise that their left-handed friends can only swing anything more than about a pitching wedge. So another really important item there to review. Again, extra consideration is certainly recommended if you are planning a dual home theatre golf simulator space, just to make sure that there's no compromises and that we can achieve a great result both across golf simulation and home theatre. If your space isn't carefully considered and designed, it can certainly lead to some dire consequences when you do get the simulator up and running. Namely, your launch monitor potentially won't function correctly in the room dimensions that you've got, depending on the technology that you've selected. The projector might not be suitable for the room, meaning we can't feel the height of the screen, the width of the screen, and also we might have some unwanted shadows being cast from the projector across to the golfer's image that's being cast on the screen. And 3, it also potentially may not function perfectly well for a home theatre and golf simulator space. So it's really important to have a look at the dimensions you've got. If it isn't too late that those dimensions are locked in, call a professional. We can map the space out. We can have a better look at, okay, what are the requirements for the space? How are you planning to use it? Just to make sure that it does tick all the boxes for you. Moving on to the next big point are the impact screens. There's a few other key points that I'll discuss today that will really hone into what the playing experience of the simulator will feel like, which is really important. It's one thing to have the right level of technology, so we get good, accurate data and an enjoyable, realistic playing experience. But also, how does that experience feel in the room? One of the big things there to consider is the impact screen. When you're designing your impact screen, it's crucially important to make sure that we're considering both the internal dimensions of the room and the internal dimensions of the frame that you'll be installing to mount the screen off. There's a million ways that you could hang a screen, but really only a few correct ways to do it. What we're looking to achieve here with the impact screen is to have the screen well fitted to the room, which usually involves custom design to achieve a perfectly flat image like you might see on your screens now. So we're talking about minimizing any wrinkles, minimizing any sagging, and that really all comes from proper consideration and a correct design as we're leading up into this process. So how we get a perfectly flat screen, it really all comes down to tension. If we can tension the screen correctly, because the screen has been designed correctly and fitted correctly, that helps you to get that nice flat image with none of the sagging in between, which will really help improve the experience. A screen that is too loose, we tend to see can sag a lot in the middle and in both the corners. But then on the contrary, if a screen is installed too tight, so if the screen wasn't made to the correct dimensions or it was installed incorrectly, it can actually be over-tensioned. An over-tensioned screen might look fantastic in terms of the image that you can see when you're in there playing. But then we do have the issue with bounce backs. And the last thing we want is a golf ball heading into the screen at 160 mile an hour and coming back at you just as quick. So it's really important to make sure the screen is well designed for the room. It's custom fitted so we can get that perfect level of performance whereby there's no wrinkles, there's no sagging on the screen. We'll strike a ball into it and it's going to land somewhere between us and the hitting mat without any danger of those bounce backs. There's many ways to design and mount an impact screen, but again, only a few ways to do it correctly. So it certainly pays to talk to someone who knows what they're talking about, just to make sure that you're putting your right foot forward when you are designing and planning them out for that screen, so it will work well within the space. Leading on to padding solutions, probably the next logical thing to discuss, from screen solutions is our padding solutions. So naturally, we do want to have some surrounding padding around the screen. How much we need will really depend, again, coming back to the room dimensions, so a good thing to consider early on. But some padding is required. Us golfers, it doesn't really matter how good or poor of a golfer we are prone to hitting bad shots, whether those are shanks, sky drivers. And it's also important to have the ability to play, flop shots and high launching wedge shots in the simulator, again, without fear of the ball coming back just as fast as it went in. when we're designing a padding solution, a few of the things we're looking at mainly is the functionality of the room. What kind of padding solution will actually work best for the space. As you can see in the photo I've got up on the screen right now, these are fixed foam panel tiles, which they're a fantastic solution if we have a solid wall and ceiling to fix into. We don't need any functionality in terms of moving padding. So wherever we can, we do like to fix the padding in permanently. So it's a nice fixed solution there that's not going to go anywhere. And of which there are many options. So the padding you can see on screen now, that's a nice thick foam padded tile. The thicker the padded tile, the better in general, obviously without going too thick, because the more cushion that padding has inside of it, the better the absorption that we can get, the more energy that it can take out of the golf ball and disperse into the padding to prevent that ball from bouncing around. If you can't go for a thicker padding solution, and you're potentially looking for something that looks different or is a little bit more cost effective, there are some foam padded sheets that you can purchase to install on the walls. We will save a little bit of cost by doing it this way, but the downside is as the padding gets thinner, it also gets harder. So one of the things that we do tend to see if we have a harder padding solution over a softening padding solution is those high spinny wedge shots that potentially might miss the screen and will hit the ceiling first. They can ricochet down pretty quickly. And all of a sudden we've gone for a slightly more cost-effective padding option, but we now have the issues of those high spinny wedge shots coming flying back towards the back of the room. So we do need to consider what is at the rear of the room. Is there anything we need to protect, and what kind of padding solution will help us get there. For rooms whereby we don't have solid walls and ceiling to fix into, or we have the requirement to have a bit more flexibility and functionality in the space, we might actually look into a different padding solution, such as retractable curtains or netting and everything in between. We do have the requirement on a lot of our golf simulator installations to be able to open up one side of the golf simulator. And that's for something like a retractable curtain. Whether or not you think it would just look better aesthetically for the room, or we do need that functionality in the design, can be a really good choice aside from the fixed in padding. Moving on from padding, we'll probably just jump into the flooring solutions next, I think, which is, for the most part, it is more of an aesthetic feature of the golf simulator as opposed to a purely practical function of the golf simulator, but it certainly serves a good purpose as well. As you can see in the photo there, we like to recreate either a tee box or a fairway look for our clients when they walk into the room. It is very visually appealing, but it also serves a fantastic purpose of preventing the golf ball from bouncing around the room. There are a number of flooring options that you can look into. We most commonly will use and recommend like a golfing rated AstroTurf. So it's nice and short, but it's excellent at dispersing the energy of the golf ball out into the turf, so we don't have balls bouncing around the room like we would have if we had a really hard flooring surface in there. And then we do have the option to create some really cool looks and designs that you guys might love for your rooms as well, such as the fairways or the tee boxes or anything in between. If you are planning to design a dual purpose space, being a home theatre and a golf simulator, you can look into options such as black carpet or a similar darker flooring, just to really help keep the ambient lighting in the room down, so we're not compromising on the home theatre aspect. But if that is something that you're looking into, it's really important to be aware that golfing AstroTurf is completely designed to take away the impact and the energy of a golf ball, whereas some standard carpet options aren't. So it always pays to have a look into if an underlay is needed of a certain thickness, just to make sure that if we do go for like a sleek black flooring option in the room to make it look more like a home theatre and less like a golf simulator, it is important to consider if we do need some underlay, just to make sure it's going to perform the way it needs to. The last point on the flooring that's important to consider, that I do find a lot of DIYers, even architects, builders, home AV guys can overlook from time to time, is the actual height difference between the flooring. So you'll notice from the photo there, we've got a bit of a height difference from the short turf to the long turf, but no flooring difference at all from the short turf to the hitting mat. We can find at times up to a 30 to 40 mil difference between the height of the hitting mat and the short turf, which can actually create quite a problem for your playing experience. The last thing you want to be doing is trying to flick the balls back up onto the hitting mat instead of being able just to roll them nice and easy up onto it. So definitely a really important point to consider when you are designing the space. Moving on from our flooring solutions, I'd like to just to quickly discuss lighting solutions for the room. Now, this is a crucial one, and really one where I think getting some professional advice can go a long way. The lighting solution really can make or break the room that you're playing in. Again, especially for these, home theatre, dual purpose golf simulator combined guys, where we're essentially trying to create things that completely contradict themselves when we are planning a lighting solution for a room. On one hand, we want the room to be as dark as possible. The darker the room, the brighter your screen will look, the better the image quality that you're getting out of your projector, and the better the experience. But we also need to make sure that the golfer is completely free to see what they're doing. It isn't too dark over the hitting area. There aren't shadows cast all over the room that can potentially cause issues with your vision or with the launch monitor technology as well. So it certainly pays to make sure that you're really taking your due diligence there to have a look at what your lighting plan is for the room. Definitely do it ahead of schedule, because as soon as plaster goes on, it gets really difficult and in some cases expensive to rework a lighting solution. So you want to make sure a lot of consideration's been taken there, just to make sure that we've got enough light for the golfer to see what they're doing without compromising on their playing experience, whilst also maintaining that really nice, bright, clear image on the screen. We see all too often that golfers will install a really high quality projector, like the series of projectors that BenQ have released for especially for golf simulators and home theaters combined. But the amount of lighting or the natural light in the room can wash out the image of the screen, which can be quite detrimental to the experience that you get while you're playing. So a really important one to note there. So moving into what really is one of the most critical points about your golf simulator design is the technology. The launch monitor, the sensor, the ball tracking system, that really is the heart and soul of your golf simulator. That will dictate how accurate the simulator is. That will dictate the software options, and that'll really provide you with a great, or in some cases a poor playing experience. So, well, I do have a few thoughts. Given that in our 13 years of business, we've really worked with the majority of technologies on the market. We've seen them, we've tested them, and fortunately, we're able to provide that feedback back to our clients to make sure they're getting the right level of tech for their needs. There is a long list of technology that's available on the market, ranging from floor-mounted systems, both rear to the side, ceiling mounting systems, and everything in between. Those really are the few main styles of tech, whether it's the rear-mounted radar systems, of which we do find can create some issues for a home golf simulator installation. So you really want to make sure, if you are considering a rear radar-mounted system, you're actually doing your due diligence to work out, will this work for my space? We typically find we need significantly more depth in a room to be able to use a rear radar mounted system. And even if we do get that, they typically don't perform all that well indoors. Most radar systems are designed to perform outdoors. When we bring that tech inside, we certainly see a drop off when it comes to the short game, our chipping and our putting. Because naturally, if a radar system is looking for the ball flight outdoors down a driving range, if we design it into a golf simulator, we lose the ball flight. So if we don't have enough space to mount one, you'll find you'll probably get a higher rate of misreads, no reads, and the short game can definitely suffer, which can really be detrimental to your experience, especially if you are looking to play some famous golf courses, have a great time. You really want that experience from tee to green, so it's an important thing to consider when it comes to radar. Then we have side-mounted systems. So again, down on the ground. I do believe that these are better for simulators than most of the rear-mounted sensors, because we don't have the issue with depth. We don't need to make a room 8, 9, 10 meters deep to be able to fit them in, plus any room that you would like for home theatre seating, a bar, a social area, or anything else. So they do perform better. But we also then have some issues with the floor plan. One of the disadvantages of both the rear-mounted systems and the side-mounted systems is we now have something on the ground that can be kicked, that can be knocked over, potentially can be in the hazard zone if a golf ball is shanked. And if we are looking at a dual-purpose room, it isn't always perfectly convenient to have something down on the ground on the hitting mat. In one sense, having a portable sensor can be quite handy. But on the other sense, we do find the people that we've installed these for typically find they need to, spend a lot more time, resetting them up and moving them around the room if they are using it for dual purpose. Then we come to the overhead mounted systems, like of which you'll see in this photo, whereby we had the Unicoral IXO installed. These have really been a game changer for our industry. They're specifically designed and rated for indoor use, and they do have a number of advantages. So we have found these have been the most popular models that we've had in our time of doing installations. Not just because we do find we get better, significantly better performance indoors, but also the overhead mount completely frees up the floor space. If you're planning to design that social area or that bar or the home theatre seating behind the golf simulator, we don't need to be making allowances to have any technology built in and making sure that no one can be walking in front of it, which can obviously impact the sensor and how it can pick up the golf ball. So one of the major pluses, and certainly a lot of the feedback we get from our clients is the overhead mount makes it really easy. The floor space is completely free. You install it once, it stays there forever. You never have to worry about recalibrating or moving that unit. We get seamless left-hand and right-hand gameplay and the best accuracy across all aspects of golf, including your chipping, your putting. There's no degradation of the accuracy or the gameplay on the shorter aspects of the game. And the long part of the game is just as accurate as the other sensors as well. So they really are a good option. I would strongly recommend to consider them for your golf simulator space. Once you've selected the best hardware for your plan, whether it is a floor-mounted sensor or a ceiling-mounted sensor, you'll then want to look into the software. So that, again, the hardware, that really is the driving engine of what will make your golf simulator tick and can drive the experience. But then you also want to consider, well, what software is available and what software is best for me? Some of the technologies, you can only use their proprietary software on the system, which locks you into it, which I think is a bit disappointing because there are so many fantastic third-party options on the market, whether it be GS Pro, TGC 19, Creative Golf, Pro T Play. There's so many options out there that you can use just to really, curate an experience for yourself that you would like to experience based on having the right balance of both game improvements and fun. There's software that's designed for serious golfers if they want to work on and improve their game. There's software out there for golfers who want to play the world's best golf courses and the best Australian courses as well. And then if you've got young kids, if you've got juniors, you're trying to get them into the game as well, there is also software specifically designed for that to help get juniors golfing, but in a fun setting. They can do mini golf, they can play arcade games. It can really widen the breadth of use for the golf simulator, just to make sure that the whole family can get involved. We've also got a few other integrations that a lot of people don't know exist, such as, you can do multi-sport, you can do car racing. Obviously, there's the home theatre integrations. There's shooting simulators. You can plug in your gaming consoles and everything in between. So long as the golf simulator has been designed in the right way, we've selected the right level of technology that will allow us to have a look at these other software options. There's some really cool things that you can do to really make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck out of the room, and it can be as dual purpose as can be. So it's not just a golf simulator room. Once you've selected your hardware, the next most important thing to have a look into is our supplementary technology. Certain hardware will have different, PC requirements that we need to make sure that you're well aware of. The last thing you want to do is invest into your dream golf simulator, and then we don't have a PC that's spec'd up correctly to be able to run it. So make sure that you have a chat with the manufacturer or the supplier for the technology that you're having a look into, just to make sure that they can fully equip you with all the information you need to make sure that your PC is built to spec. And I do find that it also pays to over-engineer these slightly as we do, to make sure that if you are using it as a dual-purpose room, you can load the PC up with all the things that you could want to use, different applications. You can run your Netflix, your Foxtel, your KO, gaming consoles, everything else out of the one box, just to make sure that you have all those uses there at your fingertips. You then want to make sure that you pay some particular attention to the functionality. This is where it comes down to keyboards, touchscreens. There's so many different size and touchscreens that have different functionality that you can have a look into. And also there's the golf club boxes. So, it's like a little touchpad. So if you are playing a software like TGC, the keyboard can be a bit finicky from time to time. So there are some really cool add-ons that you can build into the golf simulator to make the experience more enjoyable. So moving on from the supplementary technology to what is arguably the most important piece of supplementary technology, which is the projector selection. If the launch monitor or the sensor that you've selected, if that's really driving the golf simulator, I think the projector really is the most important next thing. We've seen so many installations whereby everything has been designed in a fantastic way, but a subpar projector has been installed instead. So you don't get that nice bright image on the screen. We lose the sharpness, we lose the clarity. So it's really important to consider the projector that you're selecting based on all the factors that we've discussed up until now. There are so many different projector options available. I mean, BenQ's range is fantastic, which is why we largely partner with BenQ across our installations. But it really pays to make sure that you're taking into account all of the room dimensions. Most importantly, the width of the screen, the height of the screen, your ceiling height, and the depth of the room. All of these factors need to be considered when you're working out where the projector should be located in order for you to get the best experience, and also which model projector will be the best for your room. Ideally, as you can see in the photos that I've shared today, we always aim to fill the golf simulator screen completely or as close to it as we can. I think there's nothing worse than having an excellent size screen that's 5 meters wide, 3 meters high, but then the projector couldn't quite fill that screen, and you have a couple of 100 mil of white space both above and below. So that's where talking to someone like ourselves or reaching out to the guys at BenQ Australia and just really having a good discussion around where does the projector need to be in order to fill the screen, and is there any danger of having any shadows cast? We don't want the projector casting shadows across the golfer's body out onto the screen, because that can throw the experience off a little bit. So it's a really important one to consider, just to make sure that when everything's finished, everything's installed, you do get the best playing experience that you possibly can. Yeah, so using the wide range of projectors, again, we're almost exclusively using the BenQ projectors now, especially with their latest 4K model they've released. If you are someone who's looking into a dual home theater golf simulator space, that projector will really cover both bases for you, because it actually has a golf simulator mode, which we're only seeing for the first time now, which is really going a long way. It's been incredibly well received by our clients because it does tick a lot of boxes for them. And then in summary, I guess in short, when designing your golf simulator space, I really do strongly recommend to seek some professional help. There's a million things that you need to be considering at the same time, that just to make sure that all of those factors working well together, from the room dimensions, the quality of the impact screen, the quality of the technology, the quality of the projector, and if you can put step your foot in the right direction, talk to the right people, get some good advice, we really can make sure that we're providing you with all the information that you need to design, successfully install, and enjoy your golf simulator for years to come. So hopefully some of what I've gone on about today has been helpful, and a few of you out there can use a couple of those tips and tricks and a bit of advice with your own golf simulators. But I'll hand back over to Dan. So yeah, thanks for having me and thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Jim. All those great tips and tricks that you've outlined for us today is going to help so much out there in the industry, because as we know that golf simulation isn't a very mainstream thing that you might see on the TV every single day that you should be buying. But thanks so much for letting us know those tips and tricks. And I'm not sure how you got into my house to take those photos, but I'll take that up with you offline. Bejoy is just going to run through some of the BenQ simulation projector lineup, something that Jim just mentioned, that we do have a few projectors on the lineup now to do different applications when it comes to simulation. So handing over to Bejoy.
Thanks, Dan, and thanks, Jim. So like Jim mentioned, BenQ continues to be the #1 4K brand this year consecutively in Australia and in New Zealand. And one of our main focus in terms of market development is basically venturing out into a concept called sim theater. So, which is where a user gets to use their home theater space both for simulation, can be golf simulation, can be racing car simulation, along with using it for home theater. So all the projectors that we have designed for simulators can be used dedicatedly for serious simulator players, but also can be used for people who wish to use them for both movies and for using it for simulation purposes. So why do we, or what's the biggest strong point for BenQ when it comes to simulation? So there are a couple of factors that makes us the preferred brand when it comes to simulators, and a few of them are being shown on the screen. So we have the best throw ratio in the industry, and the throw ratio is what determines where the projector needs to be placed in your room. So throw ratios are very important when it comes to projectors, and ease of installation. If your projector needs to be kept at a slanted height from your ceiling, or if it needs to be kept at a different orientation altogether, our projectors are well versed for that sort of installations too. And we have dedicated 4K resolution projectors. We have known 4K projectors also in the simulator space. And like Jim mentioned, along with the simulator hardware, one very important aspect when you design simulators is the image quality that you get on the screen. So your image is very important, and that's what creates the immersive experience. And in order for that to happen, you need projectors that are bright enough, and the projectors that cover the entire color spectrum. And BenQ is the only brand that's got a dedicated golf mode in few of our projectors, and that's what is leading us to sell more projectors into the golf simulation space. So a couple of points of difference when you compare BenQ with the other brands in the market is, like I said, we have an exclusive golf mode in a couple of our models. And what the golf mode does is it enhances your greens, your blues, and your whites, and that in turn gives you a much better experience when you play the golfing sport. And the other aspect of things is we do have certain projectors which has the lowest input latency in the world. So when you say that these projectors have low input latency, you can use them for golf, you can use them for your racing car simulators and stuff like that. So you get the best gaming experience when you use our projector models. So just certain takeaways from this webinar today is, when you use or when you go and buy a projector, you need to ensure that your projectors provide the optimal color performance. So what you see on your screen is basically the international standard with which our displays get measured always. So starting from our monitors to projectors to interactive flat panels, we measure all these displays using this international standard called the Rec 709. So all our displays cover more than 90% of the Rec 709 color gamut, which basically helps them to produce accurate colors when you play any sport or when you watch any movies. The other interesting fact is the installation flexibilities, like I mentioned. So it's got keystoning, it's got lens shifting capabilities. So all this helps an installer or the end user to keep the projector not perpendicular to the screen. You can keep it at an offset and ensure that your image fits your screen. Horizontal and vertical lens shift is also very important when it comes to simulators. So not all the rooms may be like, let's say you may not have parallel ceilings when it comes to certain houses. So if you've got a inclined ceiling, you can use the lens shifting capabilities of the projector to ensure that your image stays within the screen. Throw ratio. So like I said, typically for golf simulation, we recommend short throw projectors, and our short throw projectors start with a throw ratio of 0.49 and goes all the way to 0.89. And this is a throw ratio that's generally being recommended for golfing simulation, just because the shadow does not fall on the screen, and the projector can be kept at an offset from the screen. So we do have a few of short throw projectors in our range, like I said, starting with 4K projectors and non-4K projectors that offer this sort of throw ratios. The other interesting aspect is, so thinking of a concept of a sim theater wherein you want to connect multiple sources. You have a golf simulation hardware. If you want to connect the latest and the greatest 4K Blu-ray player, or if you want to connect an Xbox, or if you want to connect a PlayStation that delivers 4K signal, you need to ensure that your projector's hardware is also capable of accepting this 4K content and delivering a 4K content. So all our projectors, 4K projectors, have that capability to accept 4K and give you 4K content. So when you play a 4K content on any BenQ projectors, what you see on the screen is basically 8.3 million pixels is what you see on the screen. Unlike any other brand which enhances 4K, we deliver true 4K resolution on your screen. And laser light source is what we use on most of our simulator projectors. The reason that we use laser is because the cost that's involved, or let's say the cost that's involved in replacing lamps is pretty much eradicated when you use laser projectors. And laser projectors do offer longer lifespan compared to lamp models. But in saying that, we do have a set of LED projectors that's come into the market, and we'll still have a few more LED projectors that will be coming up in the next year, which is purely designed for gaming and for simulation. So the best part of LED projectors is that LED projectors would be priced almost the same as a lamp model, but will have the same lifespan as a laser. So you get benefits of multiple benefits using an LED projector. The other interesting thing is if you're looking at doing a commercial install or something which involves outdoor environments, all our laser models are dust proofed, which is IP5X rated. So which means you don't need to regularly go and clean filters, or the hassles that's involved in cleaning and maintaining the projector is pretty much very, very minimal. So this is our current lineup that we generally recommend for golf simulation. The top 3 models is lamp-based short throw models, and the bottom 2 models are laser models. So the LK936ST is our most sought after golf simulation product. That particular model has got the golf mode, and it offers true 4K resolution, whereas the LU935ST is the non-4K version of the LK936ST, which offers the same throw ratio and is best suited for golf simulation. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of what sort of projector ranges we generally offer for golf simulation, and the most sought after models for golf simulation.
Yep, great. Thanks so much, Bejoy. You could have gone so much further into that presentation, and you usually do. So today, because of time, we've cut it a little bit short, and we wanted Jim to take the most crown on the webinar and take the most time. So we're totally happy about that. Thank you very much, Bejoy. I'll just share my screen. So we have run a little bit over time as far as what we're up to now, but we'll definitely throw it out for a Q&A to you guys. While we're waiting for that, I've actually, if you guys have got questions, please throw them down in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. But Jim, I might just throw a couple of questions at you while we're waiting for those. So we've seen a huge increase in uptake for simulation installations here in Australia, obviously, over the last few years. What trends are you seeing in the market out there in particular?
Yeah, look, I think we've certainly seen a spike, not just in golf simulation, but also in golf in general, as we went through the COVID pandemic. That was a real, I guess, a bit of a Kickstarter for our industry. It certainly eased off a little bit, as I think people are now free and they can leave their homes and get out and roam again. But it did start a few more conversations around, well, how can we make better use of the space that we have at home? How can we enjoy our homes more? And especially for those of us that were locked down in Melbourne or Sydney for copious amounts of time, I think it just it provided a bit of a mental shift for people. So yeah, we've certainly seen more golf simulators going in across the globe. That's extended down down here to Australia. Yeah, just as people's mind shifts have really shifted towards, well, what else can we do within the home to make the space more enjoyable and get more out of it.
Yeah, great. It's definitely blown up in the last few years, and obviously, like you said, COVID has accelerated that, like most other digital transformations in the world. Bejoy, I had one for you. When it comes to new and innovative display devices, what's been the biggest improvement in projection technology over the past few years?
Sure. So most of you would have seen, like when back in the 90s, you would have seen projectors that had massive bulky projectors wherein you have to put transparent sheets on it to actually see something visible on the screen. So projectors have definitely come a long way from the invention of multimedia digital panels that go into the projector from the 90s. Projectors have taken a lot of transformation. So these days, the technology or the backend technology in projection is pretty much stable. So we have the LCD technology and we have the DLP technology, which is currently the core technologies in projection. But what keeps improving in most models is that things like input latency or things like getting the best resolutions out there. So currently most displays have, or most projectors and monitors and televisions have currently been upgraded to 4K. Now the next big thing would be getting into 8K resolution, and let's say simulator companies would probably try to make gaming or create experiences that have 8K resolution. So that should be the next big innovative thing that I would see within the projection space.
Now, Jim mentioned before about a few different applications that we use projection for in simulation.
Sure.
I suppose just tacking on at the end of the question about technology getting better and better, where are we seeing the simulation applications happening?
So we do, let's say, starting from golf simulation to flight simulators to car simulators to even there are simulators that are being designed to train people to operate cranes and stuff like that. So you have simulators in almost different verticals that's there in the world. And in saying that, we have also installed these sort of projectors to even train air traffic controllers, for example. So that can't be called as a simulation, but that's also one other vertical which is quite similar to what we speak here. So for sure, there's a lot happening out in the market when it comes to simulators and using projectors to create the display environment to train people and so on.
Yeah, for sure. We had a question from Glenn.
Sure.
So he says, so where is the best place to put your projector, in the middle of the room or off to the side slightly?
So
don't both jump in at once, Jim.
Yeah, I actually, I know Glenn very well. So he's one of the guys that we've been helping the last probably 12 months or so. Actually, yeah.
Better make sure you tell him the right information.
We're doing a DIY install, and we've been helping make sure that he's everything is where it should be. So yeah, great one for you there, Bejoy.
Sure. So generally, the placement of projectors are based on, first, what sort of screen size are you planning to create using the projector. Secondly, if you are using it for golf simulation, it's always good to keep the projector at an offset so that your driver, or like when you swing the ball, it does not hit the projector. So for sure, I would say that you need to keep the projector at an offset from the screen. And like I said, based on what screen size you want to create, we can determine the distance using the distance calculator.
But if we have it, what Jim was mentioning in his presentation was not having the shadow casting.
Yes.
So with the LK936 ST, for instance.
Yes. So you can keep it much closer to the screen and avoid things like shadows and stuff like that.
And offset as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anything you wanted to add to that, Jim?
I think you've mostly hit the nail on the head there. We do have there's a few other factors we need to consider. In terms of the individual golfer, what does their swing look like, because it can vary so much from golfer to golfer. That will really help us work out what the best zone is for the projector. And then again, just coming down to working out the width and the height of the screen, how much depth we have against the ceiling height. In some cases we can install the projector dead center in the middle of the room, because the image will cast over the golfer's head and there's no chance for shadow. But if we do have to install it closer, we certainly have to get cautious about, okay, well, can the unit be hit, and where is the safest location to place it?
Yeah, great. Jared had a question probably for you, Jim. Do any computer simulator software programs have surround sound?
Sure. So great question. None of the golf simulator softwares that I'm aware of have like true surround sound capability built in terms of the delineation of the sound across the left-hand and right-hand speakers. But we've certainly helped a lot of clients integrate their surround sound systems in with their golf simulator. So you won't get the authentic surround sound experience in terms of the volume and the sound coming out of different speakers at different times, but you can certainly still get the surround sound experience whereby we have speakers mounted in behind the screen, behind the golfer, so you get that feeling of being immersed in the sound, whilst it won't actually, have individual sounds coming out of individual speakers. But certainly if it's a home theatre room, a lot of our clients do get us to design the space in a way that we can fit, speakers and subs in behind the screen. So regardless of if they're playing golf or if they're using it as a home theatre, they can still get the best sound quality possible.
Yep, I think Jared wants to hear the heckler on the left side of the fairway, exactly where it is in his peripheral. So we might have to start working on that. Another one for you, Jim, just from my list. We saw a lot of those solutions that look really fancy in those photos, I'll be honest. And I think most people will say, well, I'd love to have that. But do we really need to remortgage the house to be able to have a sim theatre or a simulator in general in our homes?
Yeah, absolutely not. So we do specialize in, turnkey, high-end golf simulator packages for our clients. But we also service the other end of the market as well. Every day we're helping our DIY guys with basic setups, whether it's freestanding steel frames, side-mounted projectors for a more basic setup, whether it's in their garage, their shed, or anywhere in between. Obviously, it's great to aim for the stars and to get the best possible golf simulator that you can. But yeah, so we service all aspects of the market, from entry-level technologies all the way through the best stuff in the market, and the same goes for our enclosure designs.
Great. Bejoy, I know you mentioned a few other applications about simulation projectors in particular.
Sure.
We're talking about golf simulation today, but is there any particular application that is gaining momentum quite quickly that it's starting to capture the market?
I would say like general gaming stuff. So people who are into serious gaming so there's a lot of serious gamers that use these projectors just because it's got all the bells and whistles that they need. And serious gamers have started to, so there used to be a time wherein serious gamers just used computer monitors to create that immersive experience, and monitors do have certain limitations in terms of the size of the image. And generally we have seen a lot of gamers using multiple 2 or 3 projectors to create that immersive room, and that's one market segment which is gaining a lot of momentum these days, I would say.
Yeah. And Jim, I know that golf simulation is obviously your bread and butter, but whereabouts does sim theatre fit into your customers' periphery, or are they asking for it? Where do you see it in the future of simulation?
Sure, I only see it getting more popular. But I think, and even for most people, the guys that do go to the extent of building a really fancy high-end simulator, space comes at a premium in most people's homes. It really does. So that's why we do have a large focus on custom designing each space to really make it as multi-purpose as possible. Home theaters, they're probably the most common dual-purpose request that we get. A lot of the time you might find the husband of the family really wants to get the golf simulator in, but the wife isn't always so happy to dedicate a whole room to playing golf. So that's why we really found that being able to strike the balance between having it as it's a family room. It can be used for the whole family to enjoy, both across golf simulation, home theatre, playroom, gaming room, anything else in between. That's why we really try hard to pack in as many uses to each room as we can to make sure that they're getting the best bang for their buck and the most use out of that space.
Yeah, it's a great concept, and I think it will gain more and more momentum.
For sure,
yes.
yes.
For sure.
If people would prefer to use, like Jim said, for multi-purpose spaces. So instead of like when home theater was initially conceptualized, it used to be called as a dedicated room. These days it just gets called as a multi-purpose room. So you have a simulation for like half the room is a simulator, whereas the other half is where you have your recliners and stuff like that. So people use it for multiple purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. Well, there's no more questions on the list, and we've actually chewed up most of our time. We'd love to sit here and chat, and I don't know how many people want to stay and listen to us, but I want to just go to the next slide here and talk about how to get in contact with us. So first of all, get in contact with Jim through his email address. You can give him a call directly or head over to golfsimaustralia.com.au. And as we mentioned before, Jim's company or GolfSim Australia helps out those bespoke builds. They They make sure that you get everything you need when it comes to your simulation solution, no matter what it is, when it comes to your application or your budget as well. You can also get in contact with BenQ Australia as well. So there's an email address to sales. You can give us a call here at the office, or you can head over to benq.com and head over to the business tab at the top of the page and fill in a form over there. Or there is a contact us section where you'll get a few different phone numbers and email addresses to get in contact with us. So I want to say a big thank you for you guys joining us today. This is our first simulation webinar, and I think it won't be our last. The way that we've got a really good turnout, and we've had a great discussion today. So I want to say thanks very much for everybody joining. I want to say a huge thank you to Jim from GolfSim Australia to come over and share his expertise and knowledge about the industry, his tips and tricks. So we'd love to have you back again at some point, Jim. So we'll definitely keep in touch. Bejoy, thanks so much for outlining everything about the Projector range. And what I'll do, I'll be following up with everybody who joined in the webinar today with a recording of the session. So if you'd like to pass it on to your friends, family, colleagues, watch it again, however you see fit, we'll send you that link. But also check over at BenQ, the BenQ Australia YouTube channel, where it will be uploaded in the next couple of days. So again, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, and guys. We'll see you next time on the next webinar.
See you.
Thanks, guys.